Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's cartoon review of Samurai Jack Season 5. I'm your host, The Cube, and here I have my good friend Chives.
Hey everybody.
So today we're going to be talking about the entirety of the episode, beginning to end, and we're going to start right at the beginning. We don't want to jump to any of the spoilers just yet, we just want to get everybody interested. The beginning really gets us there. So it starts with a flashback of how Jack loses his sword to Aku, and not even loses it to Aku, but just to his own, and in his own fit of rage and a moment of pure despair, he drops the sword. So essentially what happens is he is scaling a mountain, and he finds these little sheep with purple fur, or blue fur if I remember correctly, and they follow him all the way to the top of the mountain where these large stone slabs are sticking out of the plateau at the top of the mountain. And at the center of the plateau is a time portal. He immediately makes a break for the time portal and jumps in, but Aku grabs him and pulls him out and manages to stop him right before he makes it through. And he destroys the time portal and tells Jack that was the very last one, and it drives Jack into a total frenzy. What's awesome about this scene is that we see if you guys remember earlier, we see the blue Jack that's kind of always in Samurai Jack's head, that's always angry and out, kind of disformed and disshaped, or disfigured in some way, and he's always kind of like pessimistic and very, very angry. And then we see Jack in this one moment, and he looks a lot like him, just without the blue or the red. It's just Jack pissed off, and he decides to start attacking Aku, and Aku turns the sheep that followed him up to the top of the mountain, or to the top of the plateau. He turns them into these large monsters, and Jack decides to kill them. And when he realizes that he drew their blood and they turn back into regular sheep, he, in a moment of despair, drops his sword, and it falls right into a cavern, which is pretty crazy. Or it falls right into a hole where the time portal was, and he climbs down to find it after, and he can't find it anywhere, and it kind of nags on him because he knows that was the only thing that could stop Aku. It was the only chance he had of fighting Aku, and now it's not viable anymore. He can't find it, it's not there. And it cuts back, and then you realize it's Jack telling the story to Ashi right after she saves him in the last episode. Chives, if you'd like to continue.
So where it takes off after that is at the point where, they don't know where the sword has gone from the bottom of this cavern that they just traversed. And Jack tells Ashi he realizes it wasn't that he lost the sword, it was that the sword left him because he wasn't worthy. And so, Jack tells Ashi, I must do something, and I must do it alone. And this is when, at the point where he decides to go on his spirit journey, in a sense, Jack walks to the cliff without a word and sits there. And we have Ashi who pretty much willingly just says, I'll just be back here.
Yeah, so she really waits for him to complete his soul quest, but as he's on this kind of inner journey, she realizes an army is coming to kill him, and she decides to fight the entirety of the army by herself, which are a bunch of ironclad orcs. And there's this whole scene of her talking to them, and they make jokes about how is she gonna stop them. And then she immediately grabs the head guy and starts running through them, mowing down enemies just by pushing one man with like such superior strength over the rest of them. And it becomes like this awesome fight scene. It starts basically going back and forth between Jack's inner soul journey and her fighting to defend him.
So yeah, we have that whole scene. Ashi kicking ass, killing people as per usual, and then it cuts back to Jack. We have that subtle cut of Ashi screaming, and then straight to Jack in peace and quietness. And we have, we see Jack pretty much traveling through space, I would want to say.
It's just like a mind journey. He starts on like a bunch of little hills that he climbs over, and then he gets onto a little raft that like goes over the ocean where the sky is reflected in the water so well that it looks like the space is all around him. And then he rides the raft right into the sun. Yeah,
and then it eventually cuts back more to Ashi and back to Jack, and it continues this for the next few minutes, jumping back and forth in between both of them. But finally it cuts to where we see Jack sitting in front of this person that we probably never met, probably won't ever meet again. He looks like a little monk, but he pretty much tells Jack, you are unbalanced, and come inside, make tea with me.
And as he does that, there's this whole scene, yet again, cutting back and forth, where Ashi is doing these incredibly violent and awesome karate moves, stopping all the orcs, and then back to Jack making tea so calmly and carefully. It's pretty ridiculous how the scenes, like the two polar opposites of the scenes are, especially in their setting. So it's really interesting to see. Besides that, as the scene continues, he finishes making the tea as Ashi finishes killing all the orcs, or at least defeating most of them. There's a joke or one or two there where they're just like, "Ow, I'm hurt." And then Jack is talking to this little monk who says that his inner self is out of balance, that monster inside of him, that inner Jack that we've been seeing for every other episode, is basically the reason he can't have the sword. It's the reason that his body, like, he is not who he was when he started this journey. It's because he let that other person take over, that other Jack within him that had the rage, and he didn't think about anything else except the rage that Jack brought to him. And the whole scene goes as he realizes this, and he decides to send the other Jack away and not listen to him, as that Jack basically tells him he should kill the monk just because he believes that he has the sword. And Jack realizes right in that moment that if he were to just kill for the innocent for the sword, that's the exact reason he should never have it.
So then, we have that scene. We have this whole conflict. Jack in his, I guess, spirit world, he's in his third mind in a sense.
Yeah.
And then we jump back to Ashi finishing the fight. We see a single figure running up the hill, and Ashi calling the bird back down to swoop up and carry her back to the top. And we discover that this figure, which we probably assumed was another orc that just made it, actually turns out to be Ashi's mother trying to finish off Jack. And this, not discussion, but dialogue of how Ashi is gonna pretty much murder and take down her own mother, how her mother discusses that they're family, and how Ashi claims that they were cursed from the beginning no matter what happened. And we pretty much get a pretty epic fight scene. We've already had plenty throughout the season, throughout this episode in particular also. And it's just Ashi defending Jack with everything she has against her own mom, until inevitably she, what we assume, kills her as she picks up an arrow and chucks it right through her mom's stomach.
With like such force that she could get it right through her stomach. It was crazy. But the whole fight between her and her mom was like intense, because they're also discussing how Ashi realizes how bad her mom was and how evil Aku is, and her mom doesn't see anything but Ashi as a traitor to Aku, and she won't accept anything else. It's just like a fight to the death between mother and daughter, which is not something Jack would want, I'd imagine.
Yeah. So then we get to the scene where pretty much where the cube, he called it, maybe not exactly, but he called it. We have the scene where Jack gets teleported, and he's in front of the three gods to judge him and see if he's worthy, and Lord and behold, they say yes, he's worthy.
After defeating that inner Jack, he finds that balance that would let him wield the sword again. What I was really hoping for is that Jack was gonna get like a different sword, not like changed dramatically, but like a personal one, because the one that he always uses was his dad's. So I was hoping that they were gonna be like, since it's your soul that's in balance, it's a different sword that like it accommodates to. But that's still cool. I'm just glad he got the sword back. But yeah. So he as he gets the sword back, he also gets his original kind of gi, his costume back, and then he is awoken with a sword in hand and costume in hand and fully shaven and back to his original self. And he approaches Ashi and sees the work she's done with all the orcs and her mother. Although we do not see the mother's body, we see her fall off the cliff, and then we do not know what happens to her. But Jack realizes that how much Ashi has done to protect him and be there for him while he was doing that, and he lets her come with him, and he basically says, "I'm gonna go and let's finish this. Let's go stop Aku." And that's kind of where the episode ends right there.
Yeah, and then we get the typical watcha.
Exactly. So I think that is pretty much the whole episode. I'd like to just take a moment to talk about the art, though, for the inner journey scene. It's not something that everybody's a big fan of because it's something that almost every character, every main character kind of has, like an inner mind thing. But I do always enjoy the art that Gandhi brings to this. So I just wanted to make sure like people understand that like the raft and like the whole space and the sun coming down as well as it was done. I was just really impressed. And calling the Odin thing, the Raw thing, and the last one, which I'm not too sure what it was. I did not exactly call it, but at least getting it partially right is cool. It is nice. So I think that is about it. Chives, if you have any last things you'd like to mention.
Yeah, I mean, what I would think about this episode myself, I think it's the pinnacle of this season. This is where tides turn, and the tides are in Jack's favor now. But I mean, that's just my opinion. You guys leave your opinion down in the comment section. We always love hearing from you guys. You know, leave a like, please subscribe. It always helps us out. We appreciate it whenever you guys just notify us and see how we're doing.
Always love to hear from you guys. Always love to hear from you guys. So just let us know what you guys think and anything else you might want to hear about. This has been The Cube and Chives.
See you guys
later.